What is good? We're back, and we've got week 2 of the world's best stat, the PWOPR, and the PWOPR king himself, Joseph. Quality Stats. How you doing, man?
I'm doing fantastic. Came off a big UGA win over Tennessee, and can't wait for another week of football. So.
Yeah, man, we're excited here. We got some potential buy low opportunities. We're going to talk about the PWOPR and its importance and why you should be paying attention to this stat and reading Joseph's article over on PFF, watching the gambling show here on the FFD. And then we're going to talk about some potential high-end buy lows, maybe ease your mind or put you into panic mode about BTJ, Justin Jefferson, Drake London. And then we're going to talk about, are they real to end this one? We're going to talk about Odunze, Troy Franklin, and Quentin Johnston. So let's jump into the PWOPR, your route-based hero stuff, because Joseph needs a route-based hero.
All I need is a hero.
That's it.
And so, so PWOPR is a stat that I created based off of Josh Hermsmeyer's weighted opportunity rating framework. It's just a combination of target share and air yard share. So that's what Whopper is, right? Weighted opportunity rating. And I got access to this vast database from PFF and was able to create what I call PWOPR, which is predicted weighted opportunity ranking. And the basic framework is that on any play, a wide receiver might be wide open and the quarterback just doesn't see them, right? And so they'll throw it to someone else, and that other person gets credit for a target when really maybe the first wide receiver should have gotten credit for the target, right? They were wide open. They had some level of probability of getting targeted. The quarterback just chose not to throw it there. So my model gives them credit for getting open in that scheme system. And I also account for air yards when that happens. And when I can combine those predicted targets and predicted air yards, I can create a predicted weighted opportunity rating. And the cool thing is that actual Whopper, which is the most predictive, I guess, actual stat in football, has around a 0.47 R squared week to week. So that means you can explain 47% of next week's weighted opportunity rating with this week's weighted opportunity rating. My PWOPR has a 0.66 stability. So I can explain 66% of next week's PWOPR with this week's PWOPR. And on top of that, I can actually explain around 54% of next week's actual Whopper given this week's PWOPR. So it predicts Whopper better than Whopper does. And that is really powerful, right? Yeah. So that ability is really powerful because this is a stable metric that predicts opportunity better than opportunity predicts opportunity. So we can see it, who's going to get opportunity because they didn't get opportunity in the past. And that gives us an edge over our other fantasy competitors. It gives us an edge over DFS players, and it gives us an edge over Vegas.
Yeah. No, this is the most must listen to podcast of the week. Every week we're going to be doing this show with Joseph, and then he'll be doing another gambling pod with us, which was fantastic in its first drive this week, and I'm looking forward to that in the coming weeks, man. That was great stuff over there. So let's jump into the repeat offenders on the PWOPR list. We had DK Metcalf, Egbuka, Alec Pierce, and Trey Tucker were our repeat offenders on the route-based hero PWOPR list.
Yeah, so the route-based hero framework, right? So we talked about PWOPR being a stable signal of future opportunity. So because it's so stable, right, it is significantly more stable than fantasy points. Fantasy points has a 0.29 R squared. So that means you can explain next week's fantasy points, roughly 29% of the variance in next week's fantasy points, given this week's fantasy points. If you remember when I was talking about PWOPR, it has a 66% stability. So I can explain 66% of the variance in PWOPR given this week's PWOPR. So it's way more stable. It's about 3 times as stable, right? Or maybe not 3 times, maybe like twice as stable, a little more than 2 times as stable, right?
Right.
And that stability is really important because we can predict breakouts with that, right? So as fantasy points is going up and down, up and down, up and down, PWOPR is staying stable, right? Or it's moving very slightly. And using that framework, we can predict future breakouts. And so the accuracy in this model is quite good, but people that show up on this list often score 5 more points than they're expected to score. they have a 3-point higher ceiling. And in general, they have a 12.4% better chance of scoring a touchdown than they normally would. Right. So those all matter. Right. Those are all very important to fantasy. And that's why this is like an absolute must read. I have plenty of people that read my Substack on a weekly basis, including like I know people that read my Substack that are that work for like NFL teams, right? Like they work for NFL teams and they're very involved in it. So I think that this is like a must read every week, and I think that these players are players to look out for. Yes. But we talked about repeat offenders, right?
So this article drops typically around Friday on PFF, so make sure you're tapped into that as well.
Yeah. So it releases on Friday. I'm going to finish writing it up today, and then it will, it goes through editing and everything, and it gets released on Friday. Yeah. But yeah, so a big part of this is that either your fantasy points are going to go up and meet your PWOPR, or your PWOPR is going to go down to meet your fantasy points. Mm-hmm. You can't just keep having a high PWOPR and not a lot of fantasy points. It just doesn't happen, right? Maybe it'll happen for like 2 weeks or 3 weeks or something, but eventually you will have to either explode or you'll have to go down in your PWOPR.
So when you're a repeat offender,
what is it?
When you're a repeat offender.
Exactly. So when you're a repeat offender, either you will have to explode or your PWOPR will have to go down. And that can happen for a few reasons, right? The explosions happen usually through touchdowns or big plays. And the PWOPR can go down because maybe your coach will just start playing you less, right? Mm-hmm. Maybe it'll just be whatever reason, they decide, whatever's just not working out in the scheme. We're just going to have to bench you, or we're going to have to let you play less. And that'll make your PWOPR go down. And then your fantasy points just can't catch up to that. So yeah, so the repeat offenders on this list, I don't know if there's anyone specific you want to talk about, but
obviously Egbuka had another nice performance in his week 2 second professional go round. What we should eventually get Chris Godwin back, and maybe some point down the line you get Jalen McMillan back. I would assume that would affect his PWOPR at some point, but really what you're getting right now, you should just feel really good about it of what the future holds for Egbuka.
Absolutely. I think Egbuka is like one of those players where I was like somewhat of a believer of him coming out of college, but it wasn't like I was like the highest on him or anything, like some of the people I've seen. But he's it's actually quite amazing that his PWOPR is so good. Even with Mike Evans on the field, I know that they only have like Sterling Shepard after that, right. But Egbuka's been doing pretty dang good and earning quite a lot of PWOPR for being a rookie. And it's something you should be super high on. And even when Chris Godwin comes back, I doubt he's going to come back at like full 100% Chris Godwin. You probably are going to get this level of play from Egbuka for a while. And it's something, if I was an Egbuka owner, I'd be really excited about. I'm not exactly excited about the state of the Tampa Bay offensive line, but right. I am very excited about the state of Egbuka's ability to get open and ability to get scheme targets, which is something Tampa Bay seems to be doing a lot of. And they definitely like using him for end zone targets. They definitely want to try to use him as a touchdown threat.
Yeah, so we're stoked about where Egbuka's going. What's good? You know the phrase, the house always wins? Well, not anymore with our new sponsor, ProfitX. ProfitX is America's #1 sports prediction market. It's a peer-to-peer prediction market where users play against each other instead of a sports book versus the house. You almost always get the best price on any spread, money line total, or player prop since you're playing against other people rather than the book. Looks and feels just like a sports book, just with way better odds. So what are you waiting for? Go download the app and get to work. Use promo code FFD and claim up to $200 in profit cash on all plays in the first 30 days playing on sites. Terms and conditions apply, of course. Hey, look, we went 100% on the reads from last week from Chev and I, and we hit last night's live read with Justin Herbert. So come ride with your boys here. We got, let's see what we're playing today. We're going to go Atlanta Falcons, Carolina, and we are going to go Michael Penix over 212 yards passing. And we're going to smash that bad boy. And then maybe, judging by the PWOPR stuff here, we could tie these two together. Or maybe we go Kyle Pitts over 37.5 receiving. So a little 2 for your pleasure. DK Metcalf did catch a touchdown this week, but kind of blanketed. Seahawks have a really, really good defense Should be a little easier sledding against New England this week for DK. So I expect big things for him. I'd keep him in my lineup, and I'd be down to trade for him maybe off of a down week here. And then, Alec Pierce was another guy who was right there to explode. Thornton was on your PWOPR list for last week, and we missed a few opportunities, and we finally connected on one. His could have been outstanding, but Alec Pierce had one too, man.
Yeah, Alec Pierce, he had his one. So his one missed target. He caught every ball except one. His one missed target was an end zone target that was probably pass interference, and he was probably going to catch it if there wasn't pass interference on that. On top of, and they didn't call the pass interference, by the way, whole thing. But on top of that, he was wide open for like a 50-yard touchdown, and Daniel Jones just did not see him. Daniel Jones was not pressured on this play. Daniel Jones just did not see him. He split a cover 2 wide open in the middle of the field. Daniel Jones scrambled it for 2 yards. And that's a big reason why he's still on this list, right? Even though he was on it last week and he had a really good game relative to like Vegas expectations, he's on this list again because he was wide open for a touchdown, and he was open like the whole game. So he's going to keep showing up on this list if he's going to keep performing well. Like that's just what's going to happen until his fantasy points catch up to how well he's performing.
Gotcha. So Egbuka, this is just awesome for him because he's playing well. His fantasy points have caught up, and he's just still crushing it. So all right, let's jump over to the new guys on the list here, because we have some newcomers here, and again, the article on PFS has even more players on the list, correct?
So out of the list we've talked about, no, there's no new players after the 4 we're about to discuss, but I do go into detailed reasons why they can or cannot break out in upcoming weeks. So that's a big thing that I do in my articles, is that I write about all these players, and then is there a reason that the defense is going to let them break out? Right. So these are players that absolutely need to break out based off their performances. And are they about to play a defense that will let them? So that's really important, because some defenses are better at stopping certain positions than others. Right. So like man coverage defenses are a lot better at stopping, say, running back targets, just as a simple example. Running backs get half as many targets when the defense runs man coverage. Right. So you want to play against wide receivers, get more targets when the defense runs man coverage. So if I'm playing against a man-heavy defense, and I have a wide receiver that's about to break out, consider me interested, right? Or if I'm playing a defense that can't guard over the middle of the field, maybe tight ends are where we should be looking for breakouts, stuff like that. So I go into a lot of detail on that. I use a lot of this PFF coverage information, and the idea is, can I predict these breakouts before they happen? And I've been pretty successful over the last season or so.
Yeah. And I mean, pretty successful week 1, I would say as well. So of the new guys on the PWOPR list, we got Pitts, we got Debo, we got Cooper Kupp, we got Ladd, and we got AJ Brown. Who are you most excited about on this list?
My initial excitement is full on Kyle Pitts. I still haven't gotten into all the coverage matchups for the other players yet, but Kyle Pitts is like the first one that I'm like really high on. I was really high on Trey McBride last week because the Panthers are not great at covering middle of the field, and they play a ton of zone defense. So and on top of that, they don't get any pressure. So they can't get pressure. They play a lot of zone. Their hope is like, please don't score a touchdown on us. That's basically their defense. Just please don't bomb a touchdown on us.
Yeah.
And that's just begging for tight end targets. It's just begging for the tight end to get peppered. So I am pretty high on Kyle Pitts this week. I think that, we'll talk about it on the gambling show, exactly what I want to do with Kyle Pitts this week, but I am very high on him. And, I think that other people should be too.
Yeah. So still some opportunity to go buy low on your Kyle Pitts right now. He's been pretty successful.
I sent 2 trade offers today for him, for what it's worth.
Excellent. And there's, we're not going to be in the Dynasty Daddy database breaking down trades on this particular show. This is just more some ideas if we're comfortable or uncomfortable, or if there's some room to go get those guys and we should be excited about it. And Kyle Pitts is checking those boxes right now. He's excited about him. We're excited about him. The film looks good. Kyle Pitts looks good out on the field, and Penix I think he's waiting to explode. That maybe a tease into the Prophet X play of the week here on the reads. But On this list, we got Debo, Ladd, Cup, AJ Brown still on there. Who else do you want to? Which other one of those guys you want to celebrate a little bit this week?
Yeah, I would say AJ Brown. He's a player that I think is just like a ticking time bomb as far as having just an awesome game. They're about to play. They play the Rams this week, right? Like they're about to play a team that can score. They're playing a team that can score, and I believe that they eventually will end up in a game script where they have to throw the ball, right? That was kind of my AJ Brown thesis before the season when y'all had me on and we talked about it. And they really haven't hit that yet. They against the Chiefs, they got kind of lucky. The Chiefs missed out on like 17 points that they should have had. And had the Chiefs scored those, I think we'd be talking about Devontae Smith and AJ Brown very differently this week. I think that Hurts would have been forced to pass the ball, and we would have seen either Hurts fail entirely or Hurts succeed, and AJ Brown and Devontae Smith would have been top 24 wide receivers last week.
Yeah, I've mentioned on the power rankings this week on the NFL show live Mondays at 11 and live Wednesdays at 9 p.m. We got the NFL show. Just slightly concerned of the coordinator situation over there because it's new, and we just haven't seen this offense be very good in the passing realm. But this is, Devonta Smith was on there last week, and he was the best Eagles receiver by far last week. And now AJ Brown makes the list. Maybe the whole offense as a whole, we can see Jalen Hurts and this passing offense kind of explode. So buy low opportunity still on AJ Brown here. And then we got Debo and Cooper Kupp, some OG NFC West guys making the list here, obviously on different teams, one staying in the NFC West. But nice to see them on there. So I wouldn't necessarily say buy low on those guys per se, unless you're a veteran, but you like the outlook on those guys moving forward.
Well, yeah, I mean, I think it really depends. And this is where we get into like my matchups and why, funny enough, I haven't made it this far in my article yet, but it's something everyone should read my article on Friday, because I am going to talk about like what kind of defenses are they about to face, and are those defenses good for giving up targets to slot receivers? Are they good for giving up targets to players like Debo? Are they good at tackling, right? So like Debo is a player where I really care about the defense's ability to tackle. So if they are a bad tackling team, say they give up separation over the middle of the field, well, I'm interested in Debo a lot more than if it was a team that is really good at tackling and they do not give up any separation over the middle of the field.
Does the change in quarterback there factor?
So I like to lean into those things. We can get into the gambling philosophy around that, but I tend to think people overreact to things like that. Mm-hmm. And I lean into when quarterbacks change, because usually lines for Vegas and other places, the lines will fall, right? So as lines go down, I become a lot more interested in alts in those situations. And especially if they're showing up in my list, I'm a lot more interested. I may not be interested in, like, say, scoring a touchdown, because now the offense as a whole is just depressed. So it's like, will they score a touchdown? I don't know. But will they get more targets? That's really, it's kind of a quarterback decision, but the offensive coordinator is the first person that dictates that, right? The offensive coordinator is dictating who the primary read on a play is, who the first read is, like who that initial look is going to be. And if they're showing up on this list, more often than not, they're going to be those primary reads, or they're going to be that primary read more than they're used to.
Yeah, and Debo seems like somebody, even with the backup quarterback in there, could be somebody who would just be almost like a check down safety blanket for a Marcus Mariota or whoever is in there, and then can create some yak after that play. So his, predicted ADOT is one of the lower ones on this list at 5.10. But we kind of know that's what Debo is. And if Debo can get the runways and the alleys and break a tackle, good luck, right? I always said when Debo was on the Niners, he was the engine of that team. He put the physicality in there, and when he was humming, the Niners were just so hard to deal with. And I would say the Commanders probably kind of same way right now. So Ladd McConkey's the other name on this list. I don't know if anybody's feeling unconfident about Ladd right now. He had a nice week 1. Week 2 was fine enough. But if anybody's wavering, could be a buy low on Ladd.
Well, funny enough, he's in both week 1 and week 2, the announcers called out him being wide open for a touchdown.
Yeah.
And Justin Herbert just threw it to a different player.
Mm-hmm.
I think both times it might have been Quentin Johnston, where Ladd McConkey was wide open for a touchdown and Herbert just threw it the other way. And so that's how you end up on a list like this, right? Like you're the one that should have gotten the touchdown, but you didn't.
Yeah.
And so you end up on this list because I promise you, the Chargers go back and they watch that and they say, "Oh my goodness, how did we not do this?" Make sure that Lad McConkey is like your first read on this play, right? Like they go back and they do things like that. And that's what we really want to happen so that Lad McConkey gets extra targets. He's seen in the red zone. He gets those kind of end zone targets. And hopefully he breaks out and has a good game. And also go Dogs.
Go Dogs. Me and Chev were actually talking about that play a little bit. And that just doesn't have anything to do with the PWOPR or anything. But like how quarterbacks have built-in equity, and Herbert, like if that was a young quarterback who everybody was criticizing and wasn't sure if they were going to make it yet, and that would have been something that everyone talked about today, that throw that didn't happen to Lad there was like, how do you miss that? Why are you looking over there? And nobody really cares about it with Herbert, but because the equity is built up there. You already know what it is. So that I think that's always a good, a fun discussion
and at the time of the game, it was a pretty critical timing of the game. They were only winning by 4. And it's like, you really, if in most circumstances, you'd really want them to make that throw to Lad.
Right.
And I'd say in every circumstance, you'd want
of course,
that throw to Lad. But like, it's not like they were winning by 20 and he just like forced the ball to somebody else or anything like that. They really needed the touchdown at that point. And
they did. I think
they ended up scoring, I think later on that drive or later, they ended up winning. Obviously it doesn't matter, but it's like, those are instances where you really hope a team goes back and says, we need to make Lad the focus and here's how we're going to do it. And then he breaks out, right? That's how that happens. That's how breakouts happen.
That's right. I mean, he's on the PWOPR list. Maybe they listen to this episode. Lad's ready for it. Lad is indeed ready for it. Anything else you want to cover on this list before we jump over to some high-end potential buy lows or rectifying situations of higher-end wide receivers?
I don't think so. It's just, the list is potential breakouts. On average, these players do better. They're not always going to do better. And over the course of the season, they, in general, they'll score about 5 more points than they're expected to if they show up on this list. And that's really what matters. That's what we want, right? We want to find like these players that maybe everyone else isn't super high on, but we have very good concrete statistical evidence to be high on them. And then we go be high on them, whatever that means. If it's DFS, if it's gambling, if it's Dynasty, whatever it is.
Yeah, this is great for so many different angles. And I thought Jeremiah did a good job on the gambling show last week of kind of summarizing like, hey, when you're dabbling in the gambling and redraft and DFS and best ball and Dynasty, those all are going to play into each other, giving you edges on each one, right?
Yep, in different ways. Yeah, absolutely.
Right. Exactly. So these are all parts of the puzzle. And this is a great puzzle piece that you should be taking advantage of and telling your friends about to. Or maybe not. I guess that's when you find something.
Not your league mates, maybe your friends, but not your league mates.
Yeah. So, that's great. I love this. And like I said, we'll be bringing that every week. But I wanted to talk to you about some players that we've been getting a lot of questions about right now, some high-end guys, right? This is the BTJs, the Justin Jeffersons, and Drake London right now. How concerned are the number-wise and maybe the PWOPers of the world on somebody like a BTJ right now?
Yeah, so like Brian Thomas Jr. is he hasn't really done too much, as far as like fantasy production, but his PWOPR is really good, right? So he has a 0.66 PWOPR, which is right beside someone else we'll talk about in a second, but it's in the top echelon of wide receivers, right? Like this is, if I just go back and look at it, he ranks like 10th in the NFL in PWOPR. And that's really good. You want to be a top 10 wide receiver in PWOPR. If I were to go back and test it, I bet top 10 wide receivers in PWOPR oftentimes finish top 10 in fantasy, right? Like it's a good thing to be in the top 10. The problem is his connection with Trevor Lawrence just isn't there really. And he could be doing a little bit better himself with actually catching the ball and other things like that from what I've heard. But he is the dominant receiver on this team. I think that I am more confident than ever saying Travis Hunter has nowhere near the ability to take over whatsoever. Even a wide receiver won't be kind of role. Like I don't think that's happening this year, at least. They will eventually get it together. And I believe that now would be a great time, right? They just lost to the Bengals, who played a backup quarterback for most of the game and a lot of the game. And you can't really do that. You need to win that game if you're the Jaguars. And I have a feeling they're going to go back to the drawing board and think, how can we get Brian Thomas the ball more? and how can we make sure that he is the engine to this offense?
Right.
And he has the PWOPR to make that happen.
He needs to be. They're talking about a wrist injury that he played through last week, and there just was some optical effort issues that some people didn't like from this game here. Obviously Trevor had some ups and downs, the Liam Cohen thing, and then he does dot Brian Thomas in the chest there, and he drops one. He probably dropped a little touchdown pass earlier, so things could be a lot better for Brian Thomas really, really quickly. But these are the opportunities that you take in these buy low scenarios in these first few weeks where we already know Brian Thomas is a very, very good player. So if anybody's worried and this is just people panic quickly, and that's why these three guys are on the list, because they're higher end guys and we get a lot of questions about them. So it's good to see BTJ on the top of or top 10 of PWOPR ratings.
He's an absolute buy low right now. If I would want him everywhere. If I had league mates that were willing to sell him, I would be buying. But some people aren't willing to sell. They want to hold right now.
Yeah, I mean, you should be. Yeah, you should be.
Yeah, you should. If you have Brian Thomas, do not sell him. But if you have a league mate that is a little bit wavering, go buy him.
If you're looking for more FFD, sign up for a Patreon or YouTube membership and get access to the ADP, Dynasty rankings, the rookie draft kit, and extra shows every week.
Correct. All right, let's move on to Justin Jefferson. Now, his situation is even more frustrating because, listen, Lawrence is never going to be generational at this point, but I think he's a fine quarterback, serviceable at this point. I don't know if that'll be what Liam Cohen decides that he wants to go with for his tenure as a Jacksonville Jaguar, TBD. But right now we have a real question in Minnesota. Obviously, we have some line issues. We talked about it with Tampa a little bit. But now JJ's out, and maybe just a savvy veteran, a wily veteran, I will say, Carson Wentz can feed Justin Jefferson. But what are the numbers been saying on Justin Jefferson right now?
Yeah, so Brian Thomas is top 10. Justin Jefferson is right above Brian Thomas. He's top 9, right? Mm-hmm. And so Justin Jefferson is absolutely still a premier wide receiver in the league. Keeping open, he's being schemed. It's just not working out with JJ McCarthy right now. And I do believe I am fully on that train of maybe Carson Wentz is what Justin Jefferson needs right this moment to become a fantasy relevant player. And, don't want to spoil any gambling show things, but depending on what the lines come out at, to me, it screams bet the alts on Justin Jefferson, bet the alts on Carson Wentz in a scenario like this, because they're going to be low. I would assume. I mean, we'll see. The lines aren't out yet, but we'll see what they are. But it's a situation where Carson Wentz can come in and probably do some things that JJ McCarthy can't. As far as progressing through the defense, making those reads, getting the ball to that first read. A lot of the time when things like this happen in the NFL, when the backup comes in, you simplify the offense, right? You make things simpler. It's just throw it to Justin Jefferson or run. Throw it to Justin Jefferson or check it down. Yeah. Right. It becomes a much simpler offense, and there's a chance that happens. And I would be buying that chance. Not to say that it's guaranteed to happen, but it's something that I think could happen and that I'm interested in. Yeah.
Jefferson, Hawk, run. Give it to Mason.
It very well could be that kind of offense. And in that offense, wide receiver 1s thrive. Wide receiver 2s, I don't know. But wide receiver 1s thrive in that level, in that kind of offense.
Yeah, and not saying anything, but also a curious time for how hurt is that ankle from old JJ right now? We just hey, is it hurt? Why don't you just sit down for a couple of weeks? We'll get Carson in here. We'll settle some things down. But I think I'm sure JJ's actually really hurt, and they're going to throw Carson in there. But I agree. I think this is a nice. I don't know if they'll necessarily win. I think the defense is good enough that the Vikings can get the win if Carson Wentz can just complete a couple of decent passes to Justin Jefferson here.
And that's probably what they think too. By the way, that's probably how they're approaching this as well. And KOC comes from the chain of coordinators that can make anybody work. Right. I think they'll be able to make them work. I mean, time will tell, but we'll see.
But again, he's one of the best. He's the best wide receiver we've seen in the league. Really, Justin Jefferson. He's on Jerry Rice-esque paces of things. Old Justin Jefferson. So if anybody's wavering, he'll be fine. And then the last one on this one, Drake London. And the reason all these guys are on here is because I think we already know that they're all good. And so if anybody's panicking to buy him, but what does the number say on Drake London?
Yeah, Drake London is, again, very good PWOPR, not quite as good as some of the others. And that's because of Kyle Pitts. In a lot of ways, he has a little bit more of a target competition with Kyle Pitts and I guess a predicted target competition with Kyle Pitts. And Darnell Mooney isn't half bad either. Bijan is earning his role. So there's just a little more competition to go around. So competition is a big part of earning PWOPR, right? Like who are you actually competing against for these targets? And Drake London, he comes in with a 0.58, which is a decent amount lower than both Brian Thomas and Justin Jefferson. Let me double check here. I think Drake London comes in around 21st in the NFL. He comes in 21st, which is still really good. Like that's still solid. But it is a place where right now, the Falcons just played a pretty tough defense in the Vikings, right? And right now, I think Kyle Pitts needs to regress positively. Drake London needs to regress positively. Really, that whole offense kind of needs to regress positively. And they're about to step in. Yeah, they're about to go play the Carolina Panthers, who have like a good cornerback, which just saying as a Drake London owner, that specific part may not be great. So they need to hopefully get him moving around a little bit. But they're about to play a defense that does not generate a lot of quick pressure. They're about to play a defense that does not cover that well. And they're about to play a defense that gives up a ton of underneath stuff. So to me, I am very interested in the Falcons offense as a whole against what is a pretty rough Carolina Panthers defense. And I think that we could be seeing some good scenarios in that.
Yeah. That's, again, maybe a teaser to the read this week, and make sure you check out the Gambling Show on Friday. All right. We're going to wrap this one up with some "Are they for real?" questions for you, Joseph here. Make sure you check out Joseph at Quality Stats on the Twitters, and make sure you're reading the article every week at PFF. Dropping.
I come out with a Substack. I usually get it out on Friday or Saturday, depending. I'll have it on Friday this week, but it is a very comprehensive analysis of the upcoming week, and I use it mainly for sports betting, but it can be used for anything, right? It is used to. I look at what do these defenses coverages look like? What are my models saying? What does everything say? And my Substack is a very valuable resource for people that are interested in DFS or just winning their redraft week.
Winning the matchup this week, or even kind of looking long term on some of these things. So a lot of good resources out there. You can get a lot of that information also on the FFD Patreon as well. Jason has turned a lot of that stuff into some good charts to go along with the projections and the rankings for each week and all that kind of stuff. So make sure you check all that stuff out. All right, are they for real here? Rome Odunze, is this for real despite a bad defense and some growing pains with Caleb and Ben Johnson? Is Rome Odunze for real? Because the eye test and film says absolutely. So for me,
yeah, so I'm kind of on that train too. I absolutely think that this is a year two breakout happening for one of the best college prospects we've seen in a long time. Before the season, I wrote about his potential outcomes. He was a 2024 route-based hero. So like across the whole season, he was a 2024 route-based hero. So he was getting open more often than he was getting thrown the ball across the whole season. And that leads to breaking out in the next year. He was one of the top three potential breakouts. He ended up, coming out of college, he had an awesome profile. He was one of the top projected players from my models, and a lot of people loved him, right? It was hard not to love him coming out of college.
So good.
So with all of that information, and now he is leading the Bears in PWOPR by a decent little margin, by the way, by a decent margin. Like he has like elite PWOPR. It's like in the same range as Brian Thomas, right? It's a little more, but it's in the same range. And I mean, DJ Moore might be better than Travis Hunter, just saying. So he's in like really good breakout territory. His overall PFF grade isn't quite as high as I would like it to be be really convinced that he's a breakout. But they just played the Lions, the Lions play a lot of single coverage. They allow single coverage to develop like pretty much no one else in the NFL. And they don't really have the players to cover it. I don't really understand why NFL teams do that, but they don't have the players to do single coverage, and they love allowing single coverage. And Rome Odunze is by far the Bears' best weapon in single coverage. And we saw what happened last week. And so anytime the Bears are playing up against a team that is going to allow single coverage, I think it could be a Rome Odunze 110, 2-touchdown kind of week.
Yeah. So numbers and film from last year and this year all translate into Rome Odunze being a real live thing. If anybody is a non-believer, go ahead and scoop up your Rome Odunze from him. Here's an interesting one, because we were talking off air before this, and it said, your model and rookie modeling loved this guy, Troy Franklin, and now he's come out. He's got the second highest route participation for Denver. Is Troy Franklin for real? We just saw a really nice game from him. Even week 1 wasn't terrible if you were watching that game play out in real time. And then this game, he does everything for them and looks really good. Obviously has the rapport with Bo Nix already. So how's this Troy Franklin thing looking?
Yeah, I think when the Vele trade happened, I was beating the drum for Troy Franklin, right? Like I was saying, like everyone was saying, this is a Marvin Mims trade. And I was like, I don't know about that, right? I don't know if it was a Marvin Mims trade. And I think at least right now, I don't know if it was a Marvin Mims trade. I think it was a Troy Franklin trade. And my models were very high on Troy Franklin. They had him as like a top 5 wide receiver coming out of that class. And I think that we might be on our way to seeing something like that as a year 2 breakout. Again, year 2 breakouts are them, and year 3 breakouts are like the most common kind of breakouts for wide receivers.
Sure.
And I did a study a while ago that like the most important thing for fantasy points, you're never going to believe what it is, but the most important thing is being on the field, right? The most important thing is being there, and he's getting that route participation. And on top of that, he's getting schemed targets, and he's getting open when he can. So all of that screams that this is a player that is for real. It's hard for me to like believe that he's for real. So there's still part of me that's like, is it for real? I don't know. He'll never be the wide receiver 1 in this offense. So it kind of depends on what you define as for real. I think Courtland Sutton will just be as long as he's there, he'll be the wide receiver 1 in this offense. But Troy Franklin is, in my opinion, as close to for real as you can get without having it. I'm a little bit scared. Sean Payton's kind of crazy, and that's like the only thing kind of holding me back on this is that, like, if it was a different coach, I think I would be all in on it being for real. But Sean Payton's just a little crazy with how he treats his player personnel, and that's where I'm not 100% sure.
Yeah, we also haven't really seen a ton of running back, usage in the pass game right now. Evan Ingram's been down. We haven't seen the rookie at all. So yeah, it's very, very intriguing. I like it. But it's a little TBD for me as well. I think we're kind of both trending towards. All right, last one on are they for real? And then next week we're gonna maybe talk a little bit more of the PWOPR for some rookies for some of the episode. But I do want to squeeze one rookie in at the end. But before we do, let's talk about a 3rd-year potential breakout at Are They Real? Quentin Johnston. Is this a real thing that's happening right now? Because there's a lot of people who don't want it to be so badly.
Yeah, I think that Quentin Johnston's another player that my models loved coming out of college, and he kind of sucked, right? He came out and sucked. He couldn't catch, and everyone was like, this guy sucks. But he always had the talent. He had like the best explosive score that my models ever
he just
had.
Couldn't catch. Like, he was getting open.
And I mean, Jamar Chase couldn't catch during the preseason, and things worked out with him. Yeah, maybe Quentin Johnston just took a little longer. He just took a year or 2 off before he started learning how to catch. But he's like, I think Quentin Johnston's absolutely for real. I don't know if he'll ever be like a target hog, but he is pretty dang good at getting open downfield, right? He's good at getting open downfield, and that is very valuable when you have a quarterback that throws the ball like Justin Herbert does.
Yeah.
So to me, I think this is absolutely for real. But it depends on, I guess, what you define as for real, right? A part of that is what you define. If you define for real as like Jameson Williams for real, that's where I think Quentin Johnston really kind of lies. He's going to be that player that gets some deep touchdowns, right? But I don't know if he's going to be the player that gets like 11 targets, in a game. But he'll get like 6 targets, but they're going to be really valuable targets. Mm-hmm. And it just depends on what you consider valuable and if you consider that for real or not. But that's kind of where I'm at with him, is that he's for real in that regard, but I don't know if he's like a wide receiver 1 for real.
Right. Yeah. And, we'll see with the development of Trey Harris and obviously Ladd, and then we'll see where the tight ends kind of lie there. But yeah, right now he feels like I want to roster him. I want to hold him. if I could trade him for somebody good, but that's probably not likely what's happening right now with Quentin Johnston. People are still probably like, yeah, it's not for real. I think he looks very much for real. I think he is their big play guy right now. Yeah. And, probably a bit more of a best ball play right now for me. Or if I need like a wide receiver 3 or flex play, and depending on the matchups, which is why you need to watch, go listen to Joseph and his articles there. But yeah. All right. I got one more question for you.
Sure.
Well, I want to talk about Alec Ayomanor real quick and say, what does the PWOPR say about Alec Ayomanor? And then the last part of the question is Alec Ayomanor or Troy Franklin moving forward?
Yeah. So that's a tough one. But I also think that Alec is very good for where he's at, right? He is going to be the solidified, bona fide wide receiver 2 on that team. The problem is that it's the Titans. Mm-hmm. The good news is that they're probably going to be losing a lot, and they're going to be throwing the ball a lot. And in those circumstances, I really like having Alec Ayomanor. I think that I am more confident in his role in that offense, at least right this moment, than Troy Franklin. And that's just because Sean Payton's crazy. That's a big part of it, because Sean Payton wasn't Sean Payton, I'd feel a lot better about Troy Franklin. Like, if you just like swapped them, I would want Troy Franklin, right? If Troy Franklin was on the Titans as the wide receiver, et cetera, I'd want Troy Franklin. But Alec Ayomanor is the solidified wide receiver 2. He's getting valuable work on the field, right? He is getting downfield. Let me check what his PDOT is right real quick. Yeah, so his predicted ADOT's like 16. That's like kind of a Quentin Johnston kind of role. Like, he's getting these valuable kind of downfield routes. And that's what you want to see for scoring a lot of fantasy points. You don't want to see like 3. You don't want people running 3-yard routes, because it's like Wan'Dale Robinson before 2025, because now apparently he's a deep threat, was not always that valuable.
Right.
Because he wasn't running routes downfield. Now he is, and he's a lot more valuable. Right. Yeah. And so that's kind of how I feel about Alec, is that he's running these downfield routes. He's generally getting open. He has a better PWOPR than Travis Hunter. Just saying. Shots fired. And I mean, Travis Hunter, if you look at like fantasy point separation scores, he had the worst play of the year in fantasy points database. He had the worst play of the year. That doesn't mean he's always going to have the worst play of the year every single week or anything like that. But it says something that he's already done that. He's doing some things that aren't exactly perfect on the field, but Alec is doing a pretty good job, and he's in an offense that is going to have to throw the ball. And I think Cam Ward's eventually going to get better, right? Yeah. As he gets better, he thinks the world of Alec Ayomanor. So I am, to answer your question, it was a long-winded way of saying I'm probably a little more interested in Alec, because I think it's a more stable situation. Yeah. Because I think Sean Payton's crazy. If you think Sean Payton's less crazy than I do, Troy Franklin might be more interesting. But I think Alec is, even though his PWOPR is a little bit worse, he's in a situation that I trust more.
Right. We talked about this to end the show last night with me and Chev, just kind of the Dynasty Market show. Most of us kind of came away with the exact same thing of just like, I just feel a little better about the role and what Ayomanor is to that offense currently than what Sean Payton is and has been throughout the career with some receivers. Other receivers, like he'll just keep playing these random dudes over some maybe guys that we think are a little bit better. And Tyler Lockett and Calvin Ridley are the guys on that team, and Ayomanor could float right into a wide receiver 1 role on that team. He could,
given the right circumstances. Absolutely. It's only been 2 weeks, right? Like, right. I'm just using the 2 weeks of information I have, but he was dominant in college when he was, especially like when he was young, and he played on teams with just awful quarterbacks. And I think that I'm a lot more interested in that than I am, at least right this moment, than I am Troy Franklin, mainly because of how crazy Sean Payton is. Yeah.
And in case you didn't know, he torched Travis Hunter on the field. Yeah. So a lot of Travis Hunter.
Torched him in PWOPR and torched him on the field. But what do you do?
Yeah, a lot of shots fired today. All right. We'll be back next week for more PWOPR show. We're going to talk a little bit more rookies next week. Joseph, tell us where we can find everything of yours one more time before we check out this week.
Yeah, you can find me on Twitter and Substack at Koala TY Stats, right? Koala TY Stats. All I do is produce quality stats, right? That's what I do. My whole thing is that I want to make things that are predictive and that are stable, and that we can either win our leagues on, or we can win gambles on. We can win DFS, whatever we're doing. I want to make things that are stable and predictive and share those with people when I can. So yeah, you can find me there. And then over at PFF, you'll see the full write-up of what we've talked about today and kind of what I think about the matchups and if a player has the ability to break out given their matchup in an upcoming week.
And the gambling show on FFD. So there's going to be plenty of Joseph on FFD throughout the season and in the off season. We got lots of good stuff coming up. So make sure you check all that out. He's Joseph. I'm Casey. We're the FFD. Catch you later. Peace.